Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Robbins Motivation. It's one of the hardest truths to swallow, but also one of the most liberating. We are conditioned from a young age to associate our identity with our history. What happened to us, what we failed at, who left us, what we missed out on, all of it becomes a story we carry around like a badge or a burden. But here's the reality: your story is not your sentence. The events in your life are not the limit of your life. They are not your boundaries unless you choose to let them be. People will say, "I am this way because of what happened to me." And sure, we all have trauma. We all have experiences that shaped us. But shaping and defining are two very different things. A sculpture is shaped by the hands of the artist, but it is not defined until the vision is complete. You are not finished. You are still being formed. And the tool that has the most power to mold who you become is not what you went through. It's what you choose next. The moment you wake up and decide to stop letting your past dictate your present, everything begins to change. That doesn't mean you ignore the past. That doesn't mean you deny what happened. You respect it. You learn from it. But you do not become a prisoner to it. There is a massive difference between carrying the wisdom of your past and dragging the weight of it behind you every day. That weight slows you down, blinds you to opportunity, keeps you tied to people and patterns that no longer serve your growth. Let's be clear, some people have had brutal pasts: abuse, loss, betrayal, failure after failure, and they've been told, directly or indirectly, that because of that pain, they are somehow less than, damaged, stuck. But the truth is, pain doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. And what makes us powerful isn't avoiding pain, it's choosing to rise through it. There are people walking around right now, stuck in a cycle, because they believe their identity is fixed. They say, "I'm just not good with money," or "I can't trust people," or "I've always had bad luck." And they repeat those phrases like they're reading from a script written years ago. But what they don't realize is that they're the author. They've always been the author. And every decision they make is a chance to edit the script, to choose a new direction, to turn the page and start a new chapter. Every single day, you have the chance to redefine who you are, not based on what you've survived, but on what you are willing to become. The power is in your decisions, not the perfect ones, not the safe ones, but the courageous ones. The decision to show up, the decision to forgive, the decision to try again, the decision to walk away from what no longer serves your growth. These decisions, especially the difficult ones, are what shape your identity more than anything in your history ever could. Think about it. Two people can go through the exact same hardship, but one comes out defeated and the other comes out stronger. What made the difference? Not the event itself, but the decision that followed, the mindset, the choice to attach a new meaning to the pain. That is where transformation begins, not in what happened, but in what you decide it means, and what you choose to do next. Stop living in your story and start writing your future. We all create stories to make sense of our experiences. It's natural. It's how the brain works. We organize information through narrative, we explain outcomes through cause and effect, and we assign meaning to events that impacted us deeply. But the problem isn't that we tell stories. The problem is when we start living in them as if they are absolute truth. We rehearse the same story in our mind again and again until it becomes our reality. And often those stories aren't empowering. They're limiting. They're full of reasons why we can't, why we shouldn't, why we'll never be more than what we've been. When you live in your story, you're not creating anything new. You're just reinforcing what already happened. And no matter how painful or how real that story feels, it's still a snapshot, a moment, a piece of the puzzle, not the whole picture. But when you cling to it, you make it the foundation of your identity. You start making choices not based on your potential, but based on your history. You shrink your future down to the size of your past, and that is the beginning of stagnation. You hear people say it all the time: "I've always been this way," or "That's just who I am," or "Nothing ever works out for me." What they're really doing is reciting the script they've memorized through years of repetition. It might have started from a moment of disappointment, from a painful experience or an unmet need. But now it's become a narrative that plays on autopilot. It's no longer a reflection. It's a cage. And it's a cage you don't even realize you're locked inside because the door was built with your own beliefs. Living in your story is safe. There's comfort in the familiar even when it hurts. There's a strange kind of security in telling yourself, this is just the way it is. It gives you something to hold on to, a way to explain why things haven't changed. But here's the truth. As long as you live in your old story, you will never step into a new one. You cannot move forward if you're anchored to the past. You can't build a new outcome while reinforcing the same internal narrative that created the old one. Starting to write your future means you become the author, not the victim, not the observer, not the passive reader. The author. That means taking ownership. It means saying, I'm not defined by what happened to me. I'm defined by what I choose to do next. It means disrupting the loop. It means catching yourself when you default to those old lines and saying, that's not me anymore. It means deciding what the next chapter looks like, and then taking action that aligns with that vision, not with your fear, not with your doubt, but with your possibility. There's nothing magical about changing your story. It's not a one-time revelation. It's a series of consistent, conscious choices. Every time you choose a new thought, a new response, a new standard, you chip away at the old narrative. You interrupt the pattern, you build a new identity, one decision at a time, one page at a time. You stop reacting to life and you start designing it. People wait for permission to change. They wait for validation. They wait for perfect conditions, but the story doesn't change when things get better. The story changes when you decide to change it. You don't need permission. You need a pen, and you need to stop rereading the same old chapters hoping the ending will be different. Pain is a signal. It's calling you to grow. Pain is one of the most misunderstood forces in our lives. Most people try to avoid it, numb it, or run from it. They treat pain like an enemy, something to be eliminated as quickly as possible. But pain isn't the enemy, it's a message. It's the body, the heart, the soul saying, pay attention, something needs to change. Pain is feedback, and feedback, no matter how uncomfortable, is one of the most powerful tools for growth. Physical pain tells you when something is wrong with your body. Emotional pain tells you when something is out of alignment in your life. Psychological pain reveals where your beliefs, habits, or environment are out of sync with your deeper needs or desires. But instead of listening to pain, people medicate it. They ignore it. They distract themselves. They bury it under busyness, under scrolling, under food, alcohol, work. Anything to avoid facing it head on. But what happens when you ignore a signal? It gets louder. It intensifies. It doesn't go away, it finds another way to get your attention. And the more you resist it, the more control it has over you. Pain that is not faced becomes suffering, and suffering without purpose becomes despair. But when you understand that pain is not a punishment, but a prompt, everything changes. You start to see pain not as something happening to you, but something working for you. Think about the moments in your life where you grew the most, really grew. Not the easy wins, not the victories that came without struggle, but the moments that forged you. Chances are, those moments were marked by discomfort, by pressure, by fear, by some form of pain. Pain strips away comfort. It pulls you out of the familiar and into the unknown. It exposes what's weak, what's broken, what's out of balance. But in doing so, it offers you a choice: evolve or stay stuck. Most people want transformation without discomfort. They want to become more without facing what's in the way. But growth doesn't work that way. Growth is not a comfortable process. It's messy. It's painful. It demands honesty, humility, and action. And pain is often the only thing powerful enough to break through your resistance to change. It wakes you up. It forces a decision. It reveals what truly matters. It challenges the identity you've been clinging to and asks, is this who you really are, or is this just who you've settled into being? Pain brings clarity. It cuts through the noise. It makes you examine your choices, your patterns, your relationships. It forces you to confront truth, sometimes truth you've been avoiding for years, and when you allow it to, it teaches you. It shows you what you're capable of. It reveals your resilience. It deepens your empathy. It sharpens your vision for the life you want to build. But that only happens if you stop running from it. If you choose to lean in. If you ask better questions. Not why is this happening to me? But what is this here to teach me? Not how do I make this go away? But what needs to grow in me for this to no longer have power over me? Pain can be a catalyst, a turning point, a doorway. It's the thing that finally gets you to move, to shift, to reimagine, but only if you're willing to face it, feel it, and use it. Because growth doesn't come in the absence of pain, it comes from how you respond to it. Survival is not enough, transformation is the goal. Too many people spend their lives in survival mode. They wake up, go through the motions, handle what's in front of them, and collapse at the end of the day just to do it all over again. They're not living, they're enduring. They're managing stress, avoiding disaster, staying afloat, and calling it success because they haven't crashed. But there's a massive difference between surviving and transforming. One keeps you alive, the other sets you free. Survival mode is reactive. It's about doing just enough to keep going. It's rooted in fear, in scarcity, in protection. You make choices not because they move you toward who you want to become, but because they help you avoid pain, failure, or judgment. You say yes to things you don't want. You tolerate situations that drain you. You settle for jobs, relationships, and standards that don't reflect your potential, all because survival has become your normal. And once survival becomes your identity, growth feels like a threat. People who are stuck in survival become addicted to certainty. They want to control everything. They avoid risks. They stay close to the familiar even when it hurts. They build walls around themselves and call it safety. But those same walls keep out possibility. They keep out joy, purpose, and expansion. Because transformation doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when you decide that staying the same is more painful than the fear of change. Transformation is a choice. It's not a moment of luck or inspiration. It's a decision to do the deeper work. It requires letting go of what's easy in exchange for what's meaningful. It demands that you question your patterns, your beliefs, your habits, and your identity. And that process isn't always pretty. It can feel like everything's falling apart before anything gets rebuilt. But that falling apart is often the beginning of something better. Destruction clears the space for reinvention. Transformation means shifting from "how do I get through this?" to "how do I grow from this?" It's about moving from coping mechanisms to conscious creation, from reacting to designing, from hiding behind your limitations to standing inside your potential. That shift doesn't happen overnight. It happens when you consistently show up for yourself, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's hard. People who transform their lives don't do it because they had more time, money, or support. They do it because they raised their standards. They stopped settling for existence and started demanding more from themselves. They refused to stay in environments that didn't support their evolution. They let go of excuses and took responsibility. Transformation begins the moment you realize that surviving is no longer good enough for you. There's power in survival, no doubt. Getting through hard things builds resilience. It teaches you how strong you are. But if all you do is survive, you never give yourself the chance to thrive. You're meant for more than just getting by. You're meant for expansion, for depth, for purpose. And purpose isn't found when you're just trying to stay alive. It's found when you commit to becoming fully alive. You cannot transform your life without transforming your mind. Your results will never outgrow your identity. That's why you have to change from the inside first. Shift your beliefs, shift your language, shift your focus. Every transformation begins with a moment of clarity. When you realize the life you want isn't going to come from the person you've been pretending to be. It's going to come from the person you choose to become. Burn the old story and rewrite your identity. We all carry a story about who we are. It's not just something we tell others. It's something we whisper to ourselves when no one's watching. It shapes how we see the world, how we interpret events, how we react, and what we believe we're capable of. The problem is, most of that story wasn't written consciously. It was built over time, piece by piece, through experiences, feedback, mistakes, and pain. And eventually, that story becomes the lens through which we view everything. At first, it serves a purpose. It helps us make sense of things. It helps us survive. But what once protected us can eventually start to confine us. Because as we evolve, the old story doesn't always evolve with us. It becomes outdated, like software that no longer runs the way it's supposed to. Yet we cling to it because it's familiar. It gives us a script. It tells us who we are, what we deserve, what we can expect from life. And without even realizing it, we live our lives based on a narrative that may no longer reflect our truth. That story might say you're not good enough, that you always mess things up, that love never lasts, that people can't be trusted, that success isn't meant for you, and the more you repeat it, the deeper it digs into your identity. But just because something feels true doesn't mean it is true. Feeling is not fact, and identity is not permanent. It's a decision, it's a construction, and that means it can be deconstructed and rebuilt. Burning the old story doesn't mean you erase your past. It means you stop letting your past decide your future. It means you take the pen back. You stop quoting the same old lines that were written in moments of fear, disappointment, or self-doubt. You stop playing a role you didn't consciously choose. You stop clinging to labels that no longer fit who you're becoming. Burning the story means declaring with full conviction that who you've been is not the limit of who you can be. Rewriting your identity requires clarity. You have to ask yourself, who do I want to be really? Not who the world says I should be, not who I used to be, but who I'm choosing to become now. That version of you, that future you, is not some distant dream. It's built through daily decisions, through new habits, through new language, through courage, because every time you act like the person you want to become, you start to believe it. And belief is the foundation of identity. Most people try to change their results without changing their story. They chase new outcomes while still operating from the same internal blueprint. But you can't outwork a story that says you're not enough. You can't outperform a belief system that's rooted in fear and lack. That's why change feels so hard, because we're fighting against the very identity we haven't challenged yet. When you change the story, everything else begins to align. Rewriting your identity is about creating alignment between your vision and your internal narrative. It means your actions, your words, and your thoughts start to support the version of you that's rising, not the one that's clinging to old limitations. It means giving yourself permission to let go of what no longer serves you, even if it's something you've carried for years. Because the only way to create a new life is to stop living in the old one. The old story may have helped you survive. It may have helped you get through tough times. But if it's no longer serving your growth, it's time to burn it. Not with bitterness, but with gratitude. You thank it for what it taught you, and then you release it, not because it was wrong, but because you're ready to write something new, something bold, something true, something that reflects the power of the person you are becoming. You are not broken. You are being forged. There's a moment in every person's life when they feel like they've reached their limit. Like the pressure, the pain, the weight of it all is too much to carry. Maybe it's a heartbreak, a failure, a betrayal, a season where everything feels like it's falling apart, and in that space, it's easy to believe that something is wrong with you, that you're weak, flawed, broken beyond repair. But that belief is a lie. You are not broken. What you are is being reshaped, refined, strengthened by fire. Growth doesn't happen in the easy moments. It happens in the pressure. Just like metal is forged in heat, your character, your resilience, your strength, they're all forged in adversity. And when you understand that, pain starts to look different. It's no longer just suffering. It's a signal, a process, a necessary part of becoming the person you were designed to be. The pressure isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's not life being cruel. It's life building capacity inside of you that you didn't know you had. People think being strong means you never fall apart. That strength looks like having it all together all the time. But real strength is built in the moments you feel like breaking, but you keep going anyway. It's built in the decision to show up, even when everything in you wants to quit. It's not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about staying in the fire long enough to come out sharper, wiser, and more grounded than ever before. When you start believing you're broken, you stop trusting yourself. You shrink, you play small. You start making decisions from fear instead of from vision. You let yourself doubt lead, and slowly you disconnect from your power. But what if the things you think are breaking, you are actually the very things sculpting the most powerful version of you? What if every setback, every heartbreak, every disappointment is chiseling away what's not needed so the real you can emerge? There's nothing weak about pain. There's nothing wrong with being overwhelmed. But what matters is what you decide it means. You can decide it means you're failing, or you can decide it means you're evolving. That this is your moment of transformation, that this is the season where everything changes, not because it's easy, but because you're committed to growing through it. The most powerful people you know didn't get there by accident. They've walked through fire, they've faced failure, they've questioned everything, but they didn't let those moments define them. They used them. They allowed the pressure to forge discipline, clarity, and depth. That's how greatness is built. Through the struggle, not in spite of it. You're not meant to stay the same. You're not meant to avoid the hard things. You're meant to go through them and come out changed. More aligned, more awake, more capable. But you have to shift the way you see yourself. You have to stop seeing your pain as proof of your brokenness and start seeing it as the furnace where your greatness is being formed. No one becomes unshakable by reading a book or listening to a podcast. You become unshakable by living through what most people would run from, by facing the storm, walking into the discomfort, and trusting that who you are on the other side will be stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable. The fire doesn't destroy the metal, it purifies it. It removes the impurities. It reveals the strength hidden beneath the surface. The same is true for you. The fire is not the end, it's the process. It's not the sign you're finished. It's the sign you're being formed into something greater. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. Everyone has a vision, a desire, a dream of becoming something greater. But desire alone isn't enough. Wanting change doesn't create change. Hoping for better doesn't make you better. The space between where you are and where you want to go is only crossed by one thing: discipline. It's not flashy. It's not always fun. But it's the foundation of every transformation, every breakthrough, every moment of real progress in your life. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. It's making the call, hitting the gym, saying no when it's easier to say yes, waking up early, staying focused, keeping your word to yourself when no one else is watching. Most people think motivation is the answer, but motivation is temporary. It fades, it comes and goes like the weather. Discipline, though, is reliable. It's what you fall back on when motivation disappears. It's the structure that keeps you grounded when everything else feels chaotic. People wait for the right mood, the right energy, the perfect moment to act. But the truth is, those who build something extraordinary are the ones who act whether they feel like it or not. They understand that feelings are fleeting, but habits create identity. Every time you choose discipline, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. You're reinforcing the message that your future matters more than your impulses, that your commitment is stronger than your craving for comfort. Discipline isn't punishment, it's power, it's self-respect. It's you telling the world, and yourself, that you're no longer living according to your circumstances, but according to your standards. It's the decision to be proactive instead of reactive, to lead your life instead of following whatever distractions come your way. Discipline creates freedom, freedom to grow, freedom to focus, freedom to pursue what matters without being pulled in 100 directions by whatever's urgent but not important. The process of building discipline is where your character is developed. At first, it's uncomfortable. It feels unnatural. Your mind will resist. Your body will push back. You'll be tempted to quit. But the more you show up, the stronger your self-control becomes. The more consistent you are, the more confidence you build. And that confidence doesn't just stay in one area. It bleeds into every part of your life. It changes how you walk into a room, how you face challenges, how you carry yourself. Every excuse you've made in the past, too tired, too busy, too stressed, has one thing in common: it puts your feelings above your future. Discipline flips that equation. It says, I don't need to feel ready. I need to be responsible. You stop outsourcing your life to how you feel in the moment and start owning it with intentional action. And over time, that changes you. It rewires your brain. It rewrites your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries. You become someone who does. Discipline is what allows you to follow through, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard, when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when the results haven't shown up yet. It's the ability to keep moving forward without constant external validation, to plant the seeds even when there's no harvest in sight, because you trust the process. You trust yourself. You know that the version of you on the other side of that effort is worth the sacrifice. Without discipline, potential is wasted. Dreams remain just ideas. Talents stay undeveloped. But with discipline, you unlock your next level. You move from being controlled by your environment to becoming the architect of your destiny. You stop negotiating with your limitations and start living in alignment with your highest standard. Discipline isn't what holds you back, it's what sets you free to become who you were always meant to be. Your environment must reflect your vision, not your past. The spaces you live in, the people you surround yourself with, the conversations you engage in, these are not neutral. They are shaping you every day. Your environment is either reinforcing your growth or pulling you back into your old patterns. Most people try to change their lives without ever changing their surroundings. They stay in the same rooms, listen to the same voices, repeat the same habits, and expect transformation to just happen. But your environment will always win if it's not aligned with your vision. You cannot evolve while living in a space that's anchored to who you used to be. That space could be physical, your home, your workspace, your routines. It could be social. The friends who remind you of your insecurities, the family members who don't believe in your vision, the circles that celebrate mediocrity. Or it could be mental, the content you consume, the thoughts you entertain, the standards you tolerate. Whatever form it takes, your environment is constantly influencing how you think, how you feel, and what you believe is possible. If you want to become someone new, you have to create space for that version of you to breathe, to be supported, to be challenged. That means clearing out what no longer fits, decluttering your physical space, limiting toxic influences, saying no to energy that drains and yes to energy that inspires. Because every time you tolerate misalignment, you reinforce the identity you're trying to grow beyond. And you can't outrun that influence if it's around you all the time. High performers, high achievers, they don't leave their environments to chance. They engineer them. They create spaces that make discipline easier. They spend time with people who hold them to a higher standard. They fill their minds with information that stretches their thinking instead of shrinking it. They curate their reality to match the life they're building, not the one they've outgrown. That's not luck. That's strategy. When you're in a space that reflects your old self, you stay stuck in loops. You feel yourself pulled back into old habits, old reactions, old energy. That's not because you lack discipline. It's because the environment is designed to keep you there. So if you want to break the pattern, you have to break the agreement with that space. You have to stop making your comfort zone your permanent residence and start using discomfort as your compass. Your vision needs a habitat, a place where it's nurtured, fed, protected. That might mean letting go of relationships that no longer support your evolution. It might mean changing how you spend your time. It might mean being misunderstood. But growth doesn't happen when everything stays the same. Growth happens when you create alignment between what you say you want and the space you choose to live in mentally, emotionally, and physically. Too many people are loyal to environments that limit them. They stay because it's familiar, not because it's right. But familiarity doesn't equal safety, and it definitely doesn't equal growth. The price of holding on is often higher than the risk of letting go. When you shift your environment to reflect your vision, you give yourself the space to think bigger, act bolder, and rise into your next level. You start to feel the energy of expansion instead of contraction. You start to align with who you're becoming instead of staying chained to who you've been.